girls, I want to tell you a story that happened about 3,000 years ago. And about 3,000 years ago, a piece of rope, very, very similar to this piece of rope, not the same, a bit of rope, because this was 3,000 years ago, but it would have been thicker than this, and the bit of rope would have been longer than this, but definitely this colour, red, was used to rescue two men, a lady, her mum and dad, brothers and sisters, and I guess friends as well. But you know what, boys and girls, lots and lots and lots of people lost their lives because they weren't involved with what this piece of red rope stood for. One of the main people in the story, I'm going to paint her name over here, is a lady. Now I've got to say, I've never yet met anybody with this name. It certainly is a lady or a girl's name, but and I think I know probably why mums and dads haven't called their daughters this, but I'm going to paint her name over here. And I say, I still do not know anybody with a name. First letter is an R, then we get an A, then we get an H, then we get an A, and the last letter is P. In actual fact, she was called Rahab. Now, boys and girls, Rahab wasn't a very nice person at the beginning of our story. And I guess that's why probably mums and dads didn't actually call their daughter Rahab. But Rahab, I'm going to paint a picture of what I think Rahab would have looked like. Here we go, look. I'm going to paint her there like that. We don't know she had a green dress because the Bible doesn't tell us that. But I'm going to paint her with her arms there like that because I'm sure that Rahab stood there like that every so often. She went, yeah, and so what? Because boys and girls, people would have said to her, Rahab, that's not a very nice thing to say. Well, that's not a very nice thing to do. And I'm sure she would have gone, yeah, and so what? Because boys and girls, Rahab wasn't that particularly fussed about the things that she'd done wrong. Now, Rahab used to live in a great big city. The city doesn't exist any longer because this is now, as I've already said, 3,000 years ago. But 3,000 years ago, it was a very, very famous city. It was such a famous city that lots and lots of people would have visited it as well. Boys and girls, do you know what? The walls of the city were so thick and strong, they actually used to have chariot races around the tops of the city, we're told. Not only that, the city would have had guards on top looking out over the edge, making sure that everybody was secure inside the city. And not only were there guards around the top of the city, but they used to have a big thick gate that was shut at night to keep the people safe and secure inside. But boys and girls, Rahab lived in the city. Now when she was little, she would have lived with her mum and dad. But when she got older, she moved out and she actually got a house and it was built into the walls of the city because the walls of the city were so thick until this house was built there as well. And she sort of ran like a bed and breakfast or a guest house type of thing. And Rahab, boys and girls, she wasn't a very nice person, but the people in the city were nearly as bad as, they were really, really bad as well. In fact, they were so bad, I wouldn't even want to tell your mums and dads or your teachers at school about how bad the people inside the city were. Not only that, boys and girls, but the people inside the city, not only did they do things that are wrong, but sadly, they didn't. And what you have to do is watch this little black paintbrush, because I can paint yellow letters, because if I go like that, we can see we've got a yellow G, and we've got an O, and I go like that, and go like that, and we end up with a D, and we've got the word God. The people inside the city didn't worship the only truly living God. What they used to do is they would worship things called idols. They would be either made out of stone or of wood or gold or something like that. Now I think idols, a friend of mine said this, he thinks that idols were they're called idols because they're so idle they can't do anything. But boys and girls, sadly, the people in the city worship idols instead of the only true and living God. And did lots and lots of things that are really, really wrong. Well, you might say, well, okay, but what about Rahab? What sort of things did she do wrong? I'm glad you asked. Because, boys and girls, this family of paintbrush, look, I can make things that you can't see subtly up here. Because if I was to go like that, look, you will see that the word lies come up. Because Rahab used to tell lies. Now, sometimes we think we can hide them from people. But you know what, boys and girls? The things that we think, say, and do, then the wrongness is, we can't hide it from God because He knows everything. So those things that we think are hidden, actually God knows all about them. And sadly, boys and girls, Rahab would have told lies. And not only did she tell lies, but she used to do this. She used to cheat. And she didn't just used to cheat maybe at games, but no, she used to cheat on other people. She would cheat on people. She used to tell lies. Of course, you know as well as I do. If a person tells lies and cheats, you don't know whether you can trust them or not. But boys and girls, not only that, but Rahab used to do this as well. She used to steal. She didn't just used to steal things, she used to steal other people's best friends from them. And I guess the list could go on and past the bottom of the board as well, if they haven't got any more space there. So these things, Rahab, doing things that were really, really nasty and horrible. There in the city, people in the city were really, really nasty and horrible as well. Of course, you know as well as I do, that if you do things wrong, you must expect to get punished for them. You do things wrong at school, then you get punished. You do things wrong at home, you get punished. And boys and girls, if we do things wrong, then God will punish as well. Does he want to punish us? No, of course he doesn't. He wants us to change. Just like our mums and dads don't want to punish us, they want us to change. And later on in the story, we'll see something very special that happens to Rahab. Anyway, back to the story. Meanwhile, God's special people, the Jews and the Israelites, they had a really, really special leader. His name's on the side there. Now, I've got to say that I've met lots and lots of people here, but people around that I know with this name. First letter is the letter J. And it's a boy's name, because the left comes with an O, and then we get an S, and then we get an H, and we get a U, and we get an A. And we got the word Joshua. There are lots of people who call Joshua. Maybe that's your name as well, whoever's watching this now. But boys and girls, Joshua, he was the leader of God's special army. He was a wise leader. Not only was he a wise leader, but he was a great leader. I guess that's why some mums and dads have actually called their son Joshua after the Joshua in the Bible. Because he was a great example of leadership as well. And of course, he worshipped and served the only true and living God. And boys and girls, Joshua, well, I was going to say that Joshua was a cool dude, but I would say, right, that Joshua was the dude of dudes. He was really, really cool. If you want an example to follow Joshua. He was a wise leader and a great leader as well. And Joshua, he had a job and he had to attack the city. How do you attack a city? Big thick walls and everything else. Before he did that, boys and girls, Joshua, in actual fact, he had to find out about the information regarding the city. Was it as bad as he heard or what? So what he did was this. He sent out 1, 2, you might wonder what these are, but in actual fact, boys and girls, these are 2 spies hiding beyond the hedge. Because Joshua actually sent out 2 spies, and their job was to do this. They had to go to the city, but not just go to the city, they had to find, again, look at the yellow bits, and you can see the words appear, they had to find a way into the city without being caught. You're a spy in Captain Joshua's army. I wonder how you would have got in there. Some boys and girls have said they did a tunnel underneath and go up inside. That's a great idea. Or somebody else has said to me, I would disguise myself as one of the people and creep in that way. That's a great idea. Others said they'd climb over the top and knock the soldiers out. That's it. Boys and girls, you might have a great idea how you would have done if you were a spy getting into the city. But you know what? We don't know how they got in there. Because the Bible doesn't tell us that. But the Bible does say they did get in there. And when they were inside the city, they began to realize that the people inside the city were even worse than they'd heard about. After a while, they met Rahab. How did they meet her? We don't know. The Bible doesn't tell us that either. But we do are told that they met Rahab, and Rahab invited them back to her place. As they got back there, they began to talk about different things. Rahab said to them, are you from Captain Joshua's army? And they would have said, yes. And is Captain Joshua intending to attack the city? And they would have turned around and said, yes, he is. Well, so Rahab would have said to them, well, the people in the city are very afraid because they've heard all about the great army you've got. But then I wonder whether Rahab asked this question, boys and girls. I wonder, because I know the reply the 2 spies would have given, and your God that you follow and worship and serve, they would say, yes. And would he forgive me of the things that I've done wrong? If she'd asked that question, boys and girls, they would have said, well, of course, because do you know what, boys and girls? God longs to forgive us if we say that we're sorry and promise not to do those things again, and we can become his special friend. So they would have turned around to her and said, yes, of course. Well, as they're talking, there is a on the door. Rahab went, quick, I think it must be the guards. Quick, upstairs. They took him up to the roof, and she covered him over with some straw, went downstairs, opened the door. She got it right, it was the guard. They stood there and they went, Rahab, you have any of Captain Joshua's army here? She might have looked around for a bit and then said to them, they were here, but if you run quickly, you might catch them before they get down to the river. And that the guard went off. She closed the door, went upstairs, spoke to the 2 spies, said that the guards are out looking for them, they know they're around, and then she said, listen, turned around to Rahab, the bit of red rope. They said to her, Rahab, if you get a bit of red rope and you hang it from the window of your house, then when we attack the city, we will see that anybody inside that house will know that they will follow and serving the only true and living God. Boys and girls, Rahab would have told her mum and dad, her brothers and sisters, I guess friends as well. That night, the two spies climbed on the rope, made their way back to Captain Joshua. When they got back to Captain Joshua, they told him all about it. Joshua had a problem. How on earth are you going to attack a city with guards along the top, great big thick walls, gates locked at the top at night, and up on a hill so it's very difficult to get to without being caught? You know what he did? He had a problem, and he was a wise captain, as the word said. What he did, boys and girls, was he went out and he prayed to God. Wise thing. If you ever get a problem, always speak to God about it, and God will give us answers. Because when I read the story in the Bible, actually when I read it first of all, I thought, what a strange answer God given to Joshua. Because what Joshua had to do, he didn't have to attack the city. No. What he had to do was this. And God gave him a great plan. It might seem a strange one, and sometimes the things that God might tell us to do might seem strange, but God's ways are always the best way to obey. What he had to do was to get his army and his band, because he had a really good band in the army as well, and he had to take them up to the city, not attack it, no, just simply walk around the outside of the city once, play the band, and go back to the camp. They did that the first day, the second day, the third day, the fourth day, the fifth day, the sixth day, and on the seventh day they did it differently. But I reckon that by the time they came to the seventh day, all the soldiers along the top would have been looking over and going, ha ha, you think you're supposed to be such a good army. You don't even know how to fight. All you can do is march and play music. But boys and girls, on the seventh day, they didn't just march over once, they did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And on the seventh day, Captain Joshua shouts out, no! And they shouted as loud as they possibly could, and the band played as loud as it possibly could. And boys and girls, the walls of the city actually fell in on themselves. Very unusual thing to do, actually, for a wall to fall in on themselves. But you know what? Archaeologists, that's people who look at old ruins, have found the very spot where this happened, and found that actually the walls of the city fell in on themselves, just like the Bible says. That would have been, of course, apart from the one section, which is where Rahab had hung her piece of rope, and her mum and dad, her brothers and sisters, and other friends as well were rescued because they did what God had done, asked them to do. Because what happened was this. Now this is where a hard one to read here. It's where a hard one to paint it. I hope I've got it right. If I don't, it's going to make it very, very difficult. But what happened, boys and girls, is that God had provided a way of escape. Do you know what, though? About 1,000 years later, God provided a way of escape for us. What, by hanging a bit of rope in our window? No, that will never change us at all. No, that was by sending his son, Jesus, to this earth, to live a perfect life, and he died a perfect death. And but dying on the cross, boys and girls, he was being punished. Not for the wrong things that he done, because he hadn't done anything wrong. No, he was dying and being punished on the cross for the things that we've done wrong. And if we say that we're sorry to him and ask him to forgive us, he will do just that. Does God want to punish us for the things we've done wrong? No, he doesn't. God has provided a way of escape that we can be forgiven if we put our trust in him. And boys and girls, I want to today, if you would be willing to say sorry for things that you've done wrong, and ask the Lord Jesus to forgive you, and to thank him for dying on the cross and taking your punishment in your place so that you can be forgiven. And if you do that, you'll become one of his special friends forever and ever. Because you see, God provided a way of escape for Rahab, but even more important for us, he provided a way of escape